Hello, and welcome to Husky Hoops. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully, and the National Sea Club Spotlight Award winner. I can add that to my resume, which with $1 will get me a cup of coffee somewhere. We are here with Uconn women's legend, current Western Connecticut State University head coach, Maria Conlon. Hi, Maria.
Hey, guys.
So great to see you again. And we have the founder, the man himself from Big East Energy, Mark Zanato, stepping in and joining us. Mark, great to see you.
You too, buddy.
Yes. So I wanted to start because last night's game, the men played Columbia, and you obviously I saw your coverage of it. What were your thoughts? I mean, they obviously destroyed UMass Lowell. They look a little spotty against New Haven. What did you think against Columbia?
Yeah, it's funny. I went on live and they looked okay. They looked a little uneven in the second half, but I feel like you hear Donnie Marshall talking about it on the broadcast all the time, and I'm sure Maria can definitely attest to this. If you're up by 30 points, it's hard to maintain that type of intensity for an entire game. They showed it against UMass Lowell. I mean, Columbia's a step up in talent. They have a couple of guys who actually have who are pretty good athletically. It wasn't like, you're playing against my, intramural team from Sacred Heart. You know what I mean? It's like they were a decent Ivy League school. I think they're picked 4th or 5th in the league. But what's more interesting to me about that game is I know much is made about Dan's behavior and like his ability to coach with intensity. The game before, we opened our show with his presser talking about if they don't play defense, I'm going to take their ass out. And it almost was the opposite in this game. So I think he's picking and choosing his spots of when to get into the team and when to not. And I would like to get Maria's take on that, because you can't always be the way he was in that UMass Lowell where he's covering his mouth and MFing them so that they don't hear him. But in this game, I think he saw enough in the first half. And Maria, like, they're playing BYU this weekend. Do you feel like this version of Dan Hurley is basically saying, like, okay, we got a whole week to prepare for this. It's not going to be fun for them because they showed me how lackadaisical they can be in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the really good coaches out there that I've known or that we've seen know when to ratchet it up before a game and when they need to, pull it back a little bit. And I think you're spot on. I think practice is going to suck this week. That would be my assumption. Like, because you want to make practice and that experience as hard as possible so that when they step into that BYU game, it doesn't feel as difficult. So I think, you're going to see a little bit of that from Danny. I think it's also just really hard for him to tone it back. I don't think that's really in his nature. I think that's actually harder for him than ratcheting it up. So, any little bit of control he finds there, I'm always impressed with, because I always see him as like a one gear guy going a million miles an hour. So, but you know what, too, like I always say that's what your assistants are for,
Right.
The head coach is, 9 times out of 10, you're the villain, right? And like, you're the one, and then the assistants come in and they kind of, they smooth it over. They make you feel good behind the scenes. Like, that's their role. So, I think you see a lot of that. He's allowed. I think he's allowed to do that because I think he has really good assistants that know how to, kind of massage it behind the scenes too.
Yeah. And Mark,
did you hold on real quick, Steve? Did you catch the exchange he had at the very end of the game? They went to that. They did the replay, and honestly, he sat down, and James Breeding came over to him, and you could see him mouthing it. And then I had a buddy who is kind of working for us behind the scenes there, essentially just say, James was like looking at him like, what's the deal? And he just said, I'm just really effing frustrated with my team. and just sat down and had a laugh. Like that was it. And like they just had a nice little exchange there. And that's a guy who he has a lot of back and forth with, because James is an uneven official if you're a Big East fan. So I just thought that was really, to Maria's point, I think there's a little bit of maturation knowing how good this team can be and knowing like where he needs to push the buttons, and this Columbia game was not the time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to take a little bit before he knows what buttons to push on this team and when. I mean, obviously with Caravan, he knows he's had a guy long enough, and he knows he can push him, and that Alex is going to respond positively. I even think with Solo Ball and Reed to an extent, he knows how to push those guys. But some of these other guys, I don't care where you were before.
Right.
Playing for Danny Hurley is another. It's just another animal, So I think it is adjustments, and not everybody responds well to the way that he coaches sometimes. So, it's going to take a little bit of time. I think the hard part for him, to your point, and saying that he's frustrated, is that he's had a bunch of cupcakes pretty much up to this point, and now you got a huge game this weekend, and it's like they're not getting it as fast as I want them to get it.
Fair. Yep.
And Mark, I mean, Joe D has talked a lot about Silas Deery. He's the Georgia transfer, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
And he hasn't performed as well as we would have liked, or as what we need. What do you think's going on with him?
I mean, I think it's one of those things, man. Like, I guess I would ask a question back: is what do you mean by that? Like, because
he's not scoring as much. He's not producing as much. I think they had expectations for him.
I don't think he's being asked to score. To be honest with you, I think. I mean, I don't know, and I can't say that I just spoke to Dan and he told me this, but at the same time, you can just tell when a player is their role. Like Solo is, he's hunting for shots. Even Jay Stu to a certain extent is trying to create. I think Silas is feeling his way out. And to Maria's point earlier, like when you have these new guys, and Dan mentioned it in his post game about how they have a contentious relationship right now because he's trying to mold him into what he wants, which is, the Tristan Newton type role. But even if you remember, like way back, Tristan took him a while to kind of get to the point where he took over, because I don't know Silas personally. I do know some of the folks that from in my neck of the woods down here that coached him, and they do say that he is a similar type to Tristan, where he's reserved. He doesn't let a lot of things bother him. I mean, he still had 9 assists in that game. He's not exactly going to. If you're the point guard and you have 9 assists, and I think you only had 2 turnovers, I think Maria would take that in her team. If your point guard's giving you a +7 on the assist to turnover ratio, to get 7 points. I'd like to see him make. My only criticism of him is maybe make your free throws at a higher clip, but that's it. Like I think he's going to come. There's going to be a game that they need him to be more aggressive, and then he'll step up, because that was the role at Georgia. I think the difference this year from last year, obviously, is the amount of guys they have that they can essentially say, "Here's the ball." Outside of the action that we're running, you can provide us with some off-script plays, and he's definitely that guy. Solo is one of those guys, and you're hoping Braylon is one of those guys when he comes off of injury.
Maria, what do you think about Silas and his performance? Yeah, he did have 9 assists, 6 rebounds, 5 points. Do you think his production is right where it needs to be, and he's going to be that facilitator?
Well, I think, and I've said this on prior weeks, for me, I personally think that this team will go as far as a solid facilitator brings them. And I'm not saying that facilitator has to score 20 points a game. I mean, I think he can pick his spots, and I think there's going to be matchups where he's going to have to score more. And then there's going to be some where it's like, listen, if you're getting Solo and Alex and some of these other guys, the ball where they need it, that's just as good. So I mean, 9 assists, 2 turnovers. I think that's great production from that spot. And I think he'll find his groove of like where he fits in terms of like scoring per game. But I actually thought he played well the other night. I didn't have an issue with that at all. I'm hoping that, he plays really well against BYU. Like anytime you got a guard that's giving you that, it's a good situation.
Well, that's why you're the expert. That's why the expert.
And Steve, like just to put some analytical perspective on that, one of the things that we all know, and I think you're looking at Uconn and Dan and Luke and this offense as 83% of their shots are either at the rim or from three. So they're thriving in what the offense that they particularly like. They're shooting on twos. They're shooting about 66%. And I have a sheet up in front of me, so I'm not just pulling this out of the air. They're 72 out of 109, so 66% from twos. They're shooting at a 55% clip, and effective field goal percentage is like 63%. So they're in the 94th percentile for offense right now. Their threes are not where they probably want them to be, just under 40%. If they can clip that up to just over 41%, they'll be elite in terms of how they play. And you don't get a lot of mid-range game in the men's game. So, one or two shots a game, like solo stepping in and taking a jumper the other day, setting things up for for his entire game as a 3-level scorer. But so production wise, it's hard to say because it's New Haven, UMass Lowell, and Columbia.
Right.
We'll find out against BYU. BYU is a lot more athletic than people hear BYU and they think, oh, BYU, Jimmer Fredette. Like think of the days when all these guys were like on Mormon missions and, they got a couple of, a decent athlete here and there, but they got a top 5 pick. Richie Saunders could be in the NBA. Keba Keita is fantastic at 6'8", 240 down low. So that'll be a big matchup with Terrace. So the big games are coming. So we're going to find out a lot about this team really shortly.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I was gonna, if you didn't bring that, I was gonna say like all of that offensive efficiency is fine right now when you're playing against the teams that you're playing against. I think if I'm Danny, I probably want that number to even be higher than it is for the competition that I'm playing against, and maybe that's a little worrisome because they are super analytic.
Oh yeah,
guys from a coaching standpoint. I mean, they're crunching numbers constantly. So I think the true tell will be after this weekend and what that offensive efficiency looks like. Don't forget too, like, sometimes when you're playing like all these cupcakes in the beginning, like it's hard to get up for these games too. And I say that like lightly because, as an athlete and a competitor, it shouldn't matter who you're playing to get up for, but like, you pretty much know when you roll the ball out against a Columbia or a New Haven, like unless something catastrophically goes wrong and they play absolutely perfect, there's no chance that you're going to lose that game, so kind of going into that, it's tough. So we'll see this weekend.
For sure.
Yeah. And Mark, I wanted to ask you because Joe D always talks about this. Jaden Ross, he's going to be critical to the success of this team. His role, whether he coming off the bench, scoring, doing what he does. What did you think of his performance, and do you think he's continuing to improve and will be an impact player on this team?
Yeah, I think it was a tale of two halves, right? Like in the first half, he looked like what Dan's been talking about, first round talent in practice and, hitting threes and playing good defense and, having a great floor game. I think he was at 10 points in the first half, was 3 of 3 from 3. And then the second half, it was back to a little too twitchy on defense, not moving your feet, playing with your hands on defense. He had five fouls in the second half. So he fouls out. And I think that was the part that I was like, that's the part that's uneven. It's like you get out to this big lead, you can't really sustain it because for whatever reason, to Maria's point, maybe you're not up for it, you're thinking ahead, whatever. But it's those habits that he's trying to hammer out that you don't take a play off against Columbia because you'll take one against BYU and then we'll be down 7 points. So, those are the moments that I think, I've never coached at that level. I've coached a different sport where it's like it's all pieced together in sequences. Like you can't think of it in terms of like maybe you can think about it possession by possession, but each possession kind of leads to other things, right? And so to me, that's the biggest thing I look for when I'm watching these games is like, how are they sustaining leads? It's why there are stats now, like the guy who does evanmia.com, he does these things called kill shots, right? If you can do a 10-0 run, that's a kill shot. If you can keep a team for like longer droughts, like there's like defensive kill shots. So like the championship teams had multiple 10-0 runs, plus they would keep teams from scoring. So it's that combination that kind of sustains leads. And it's why that famous one against Illinois that was 30-0 in the Elite Eight is kind of so talked about, because not only did they score 30 straight points, they didn't let up any points. So like it's that combo of you're efficient on offense and you don't let up on defense.
Maria, Jaden Ross, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, similar. I mean, my thing with all their big guys is like, can they stay on the floor?
Yeah.
Can they stay out of foul trouble? I've been talking about this since last year. Uconn always traditionally had bigs that great shot blockers, right? Great rim protectors, but traditionally kind of stayed out of foul trouble. And I think we struggled with that last year with the consistency in the post of who was going to be on the floor. And I think we've seen a little bit of that this year as well, in terms of, who's going to be able to stay out there. And I think, for me, it's a question mark. Like, we have good bigs, but they're only good if they can be on the court, right? So, and it's not like we've played against teams that have tremendous post players yet. So again, I think it'll be a good test. I think the guards got to keep people in front of them, because that's where a lot of our bigs get into trouble, is sliding over for help, mistiming of going up for shots or help side. So, I'm kind of in the same boat as Mark with that. I think, we definitely got to clean that up a little bit. And I think it's got to be like post player by committee, like as long as one of them is going to, we need two guys to play really well, because one guy's going to need a break. Exactly. And it can't be a break because you got 3 fouls already. It's got to be a break because you just need 2, and we'll be all right.
Maria, can I ask you a question off of that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
On the coaching side of things, like defensively, one of the things that I've found with this team early, and again, the only thing that's concerning to me is getting beat off the dribble against Columbia, against New Haven, against UMass Lowell. You play in better competition, that'll happen more. Would you prefer it as a coach to not compound things by also fouling because you're getting beat off the dribble, and not necessarily giving up shots, but like sometimes you have to know when someone beats you, and the help defense, if it's not connected, sometimes you just give up shots and it sucks, but you live to see another possession versus compounding your mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always torn with that, right? Like, most post players aren't getting in foul trouble because they're getting buried in the post and then they're fouling, right? Most post players are getting into foul trouble because a guard can't keep somebody in front of them, and then they got to slide over and help side, right? So it's a domino effect. I think that the hard part for me with the team last year, and I'm seeing it a little bit this year, is like if you think back to like, Klingon, Sonogo a little bit, I'll go as far back as like like Emeka Okafor and those guys, like they had such unbelievable timing with the help and staying vertical, right? Going up, like you don't have to block every shot, right? Like just get there and get vertical so that you're not coming down. And for whatever reason, last year and this year, like we're just not doing that. The timing is off. We're not coming there and getting straight up. Like we're fouling, we're bumping. So it's a culmination. I mean, listen, you never want to give up a layup, but like I have one kid right now where I'm like, I actually said to her in one of our scrimmages, like, if you're not there and help side early enough, and like now you're committing a dumb foul and you have 3 and I got to sit you, like you're no good for me on the bench. Now, listen, I'm not as deep as Uconn. So for me, it like compounds a little bit faster, but like, I say to them, like, I'd rather give up 2 sometimes and keep you in the game for another 3 minutes versus foul. They go to the line, they make 2 anyways, and now you're on the bench. So, I think in a perfect world, the solution is like start guarding people. Like, don't let them get downhill on you, right? Like, we got to do something to keep people in front of us, because I do think a lot of the fouls that the bigs got last year and are getting this year are just a product of bad perimeter defense. Which again, like, the weird part about that for me is that, Uconn historically has been so phenomenal guarding off the dribble. That it's tough to kind of see that, but I also think that our bigs are not. The timing has just been off. They got to find a way to fix that.
No, absolutely. Mark, I wanted to get your thoughts on the women defeating Florida State, and Sarah Strong, obviously named Big East Player of the Week. They beat number 20 Louisville. What do you think of the women and the start that they're off to?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I take it back to Big East Media Day. I asked Gino in person, what the quote or the kind of the I think the media says this a lot, which is, is having too many players a good problem to have, right? And so like they have so many players that can compete. And I thought his comment was really great, which essentially to crystallize it was, typically, even though on the outside looks like we have 14 or 15 players that can play, he's like, the reality is only 9 or 10 are going to. And it's how those other 5 react to them not playing is how enjoyable of a season we'll have. But as far as like their talent goes, I mean, I think Sarah's going to be Sarah. She's ridiculous. Like she's easily the best player in the country. And I don't even think it's if you're questioning that, you have some kind of bias towards Uconn. She is by far the best player, can do everything, can even play some point forward for you. I think one of those, the questions I have about the women, which are not many, is, I thought about, is Kaylee Heckel, how is she going to integrate into this team? And she's been phenomenal. I think she's shown the reason why people were questioning, like, why are they going for her? It's like, they already have all these guards. It's like, because she's better than them. Like, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. Like, she's a better player than some of the players that they had on their team. And she's also not doing it in a way where like she's coming in. No one does at UConn where she's like, I'm the woman that takes over this team. She's seamlessly jumped into this team. Great on defense, very quick, great off the ball. So I just think it's an embarrassment of riches at this point, between her and KK and Ashlyn. We haven't even seen Blanca Quinones. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't see them having an issue this year really with anyone. They'll have some lulls because they lost Paige and she had such an incredible impact on this team. But I feel like AZ stepped up her game. She looks like a totally different player, hitting shots off the dribble. I don't worry about the women as much as I do about the men, because I feel like they always find a way to kind of get things the way it should be. Whereas the men are, and part of that is the way the game is set up. The women stay longer because of the rules. There's not as much turnover, but I think that's just the reality.
And Maria, I know you guys used to bust on me because I was a Caitlin Chen fan. I'm a Kaylee fan now as well. But we talked about the game yesterday on your show. What again were your thoughts on the FSU game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the scary part, right? And I mentioned this yesterday, is like I don't even think we've really played well yet. And what I mean by that is like to the capability that I think we can. Like I talked to Morgan the other day and I'm like, what's going on with our Egyptian? Like she's playing good. We just like, we don't, who do you take minutes away from, in order to get her in there? And, I think they are really deep. I think, I think Ashlyn's still trying to find her way a little bit. She didn't shoot well again the other day. So I don't know what's going on there, but, she still played solid. I think the nice part about Heckel and anyone who's asking why did we go after her again, I think it's just a lack of basketball IQ, because, traditionally UConn's always like, you got KK, which is going to be KK, right? She's going to be a ball of energy when she gets in there, and it's going to be really, really fast, and she's going to be all over the place. I don't think you can sustain that for 40 minutes. I think you need another guard that's going to come in and kind of like relax things, right? Like we had that with Nika. We had that with Caitlin Chen last year. there's going to be games where it's got to be a little bit slower pace. And I think Heckle is kind of loving the fact that she doesn't have to be the person, like she doesn't have to do that. Like she can just play a solid fundamental game, make some open shots when she gets them, distribute the ball, play solid defense, and not have to worry about putting up 20 a game because you have multiple other people that are capable of doing that. AZ's being AZ. And yeah, I mean, Sarah Strong she's by far one of the most versatile players we've seen in a really, really long time. And she's only a sophomore, which is scary. And she can do a little bit of everything. And she doesn't even she has the ability. They have two kids that have the ability to take over a game at any point, in AZ and Sarah. And, I don't even think that we've scratched the surface yet on how good this team can be. So, I think really to the points that we've all said, and it's not even a concern, like the whole who's going to get minutes and whatever, because I think Gino and his staff do such a great job of, if you come to Uconn because you want to score 30 points a game, you came for the wrong reason, right? Yeah. And there might be some games where you do score 30 or you score 20 or whatever. We really don't see many people score 30. It's just not a product of the way we run offense. But, I think these kids are so dialed in and so bought into the big picture, which is to win the Big East and put yourself in position to win a national championship. So, even the playing time thing is we've seen Uconn teams, obviously, over the last 5 years. You never know what's going to happen and when your number is going to be called. No. I hope that we don't have any injuries this year, right? But it's hard to go a whole season without somebody getting injured, at least for a little bit. So it's just about being ready for when your number's called and making the most of the opportunity that you're given. But yeah, we looked good, but we didn't look great. Some people say, how could you say that? We won by 30 something points. Like, they're just still scratching the surface. It's not even fully clicking yet. So I think it's exciting. I'm not, to Mark's point, I'm not worried at all. I say that with a grain of salt. Like, we'll see once we start getting into a little bit of our, thicker out of conference schedule, I guess. But even there, I don't know. I think top to bottom that there's no one else in the country that has what we have. So we'll see.
I know you got to pop off. The women have Loyola and Ohio State, which obviously will be wins. And I know you will enjoy trying to watch the game on Peacock. What is your prediction for the men against BYU?
For me?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to be a grind. I think it's going to be a single-digit game. And I think it'll go to, can we keep our bigs on the floor? Can our point guard distribute? But I think it's going to go down to the wire. I think it's going to be a great game. I think we take it, but I think it's going to be in single digits.
And then who do you play this week?
We play Nichols tomorrow and Mount St. Vincent's on Saturday.
All right. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Maria Tomlin, Uconn women's legend, Western.
All right, guys. See you, Mark.
See you, Maria.
Go get them. Mark, I just wanted to ask you, for the Big East, we were having a discussion yesterday, for especially, the men, who do you see as contenders in, the Big East Conference for the men? St. John's, is it Creighton, Xavier? Because people are saying that they're not that deep. What are your thoughts on that?
They're not. I think when people talk about the Big East right now, unfortunately, it's a transition period. Their NIL and rev share is changing. And so when it comes to non-football schools outside of Uconn, the amount of money that can be spent on basketball is going to change. Didn't happen this year, this past cycle. It's going to happen the next year, next couple of years. So unfortunately, we don't live in a very patient society. So the Big East as a whole is only going to get stronger. And if you think about even as bad as Xavier is right now, if you think about who Richard Pitino is and, the type of infrastructure he's trying to build, that team in particular, Georgetown, I know UConn and Georgetown go way back. They're like the first team I hated as a kid, right, growing up. And, covering them and having guys on our team that cover them, they're really high on Georgetown. And I think Georgetown proved that they're not the old the Patrick Ewing version of Georgetown, the coach, not the player.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be a wait and see. Like Georgetown beat a decent Maryland team on the road, going into someone's environment on the road early and winning a game where you never really even had an issue. They had like one lull in that game, won by double digits. They look good. Even DePaul, who lost to Buffalo last night, and it's still a building situation for Chris Holtmann. I think UConn fans in particular, because that's the majority of people that watch your show, need to understand like UConn was in the absolute dumpster before Dan Hurley, and then even for the first couple of years. If you read his book or listen to his book, he was thinking about, man, how can I get out of here? Like when he first got to UConn. So like you got to give coaches an opportunity to build. It's not. It should happen faster with NIL, but now with the NIL changing and rev share, you have to piece it together in a different way. And so UConn is always going to be there because there's a dedication to it, whether we stay in the Big East or not. I think is a question for the next couple of years, but no one's going anywhere until at least 2030. So both the men and women are in the Big East until minimum 2030. So we're here for another 4 or 5 years. So get used to it. I think St. John's is going to be very good. I think Creighton's got some challenges. Georgetown's going to be better. I think give DePaul a chance. I like Chris Holtmann as a coach. Xavier's awful this year, but that's just going to be, they're also probably going to surprise some folks, once they get things going. So I don't know, man. Like there's not a cause for concern per se, but it's just one of those where you just have to give. Let's get through the non-conference and get into actual play. I think the biggest concern for if you're a Big East fan as a whole is if you don't win the bigger games early, because the Big East at the bottom isn't as strong anymore. There's not as many quad 1, quad 2 games that can help with NCAA tournament stuff. So, but look, if you're a UConn fan, don't concern yourself with that. You're going to win. You're going to win the games that you're going to win. Let me and everyone else that's covering the Big East worry about whether or not they suck as a whole. And honestly, like wanting them to go to the ACC or the Big 12 and because of higher competition, be careful what you wish for. If you go, especially if it becomes where the ACC seems like they're a little bit better. BC is awful. They just lost to Central. Congrats to Central, by the way. But Wake Forest looked really good. They almost beat a top 10 Michigan team in Detroit last night. They lost at the buzzer. They were a 15-point underdog. So ACC, Big 12. Those are. I'm not saying UConn's not going to compete there, but you're going to lose a lot more games in that conference than you are in the Big East. And I think there's kind of like a secret sauce to this whole UConn dynasty, if you will, right, over the last 35, 40 years, which is you play enough good competition like the way Danny and his staff scheduled this year in the non-con, and you play a rough and competitive Big East schedule, but you don't beat yourself up so bad in the conference play that by the time you get to the tournament, you just don't have anything left. So I think we should all be very thankful that the Big East isn't a 20-team league where you're traveling all across the country, and just be thankful that we only go to like Nebraska. That's the farthest we travel for a conference game. So as much as it would be cool to play Duke, and listen, selfishly, I live an hour away from North Carolina, Duke, 30 minutes away from Wake Forest, 45 minutes away from NC State. Be awesome. Because guess what? My network is sustainable now. I can create something else with UConn.
It's right there. Yeah.
It would be great. Selfishly, I'd take it. But I think the Big East is going to be fine. I just think this year is going to be a challenge. And then as time goes on, it's just such an interesting conference. It's the only conference that
really is
about basketball. It's the only one.
It is. It is. The other question I had, because football has been very impatient, like you said, this year, and we've seen so many coaches fired, especially in the power conferences, and fired early.
Yeah.
I asked Joe D about this, and I asked a couple other people. Do you think the same is possible in basketball? I know basketball is a longer season. Do you see that there could be quite a bit of turnover in coaching, either during the season or after the season in basketball?
It just would depend on. It would have to be like a total collapse. You know what I mean? Like a great example would be as high of a hopes as Georgetown has. If they just went on like a 10-game losing streak or something crazy like that, and the team, like, because with NIL and way kids are getting paid now,
right?
It's very much like the pros where the locker room starts to get very contentious and there's infighting and stuff like that. So I think that's part of why we're seeing that, because of the proification of college athletics, where if you are in a locker room that doesn't have the culture that you're trying to create, you end up having these circumstances. So I don't see it in basketball. It's just not the type of it's impatient, but also with the transfer portal being 2,000, 3,000 strong almost every year now, there's a really good opportunity to create a winning team just the next following year. So it would have to be multiple years of playing poorly, and the expectations are really high.
Yeah. And, we obviously talk about this for football, and it affects basketball. Do you think basketball obviously is going to benefit from staying in the Big East? And if we're able to go to an ACC or a Big 12 for football only and stay in the Big East for basketball, that would be the best for us.
It would never happen. So whether I think it's the best or not is irrelevant. Like I mean, like I told you personally, it wouldn't make a difference for me, like in terms of like how I make my living. But everyone's like, oh, you have a vested interest. You created this thing called Big East Energy Network, and I'm just like, well, I mean, there's 10 other schools. Like I love Uconn, and I'm going to root for them until the day I die. But at the same time, if they go to the ACC or the Big 12, I'm still going to cover them in a different capacity. The Big East Energy Network is still going to stay on. So, it's one of those things where the Big East is going to be on the uptick because of how teams are going to pay out their players is going to be different. I had a guy on who does a podcast called the Tri-State College Basketball Podcast, Brian DiNovellis. He's interviewed Dan before, Seton Hall alum. And, we were talking about like, how is Seton Hall going to invest in basketball? And essentially he was saying like, it's going to take some time. Like, so if they're competitive, if you're competitive in the Big East and you're either on the fringe of the NCAA tournament, or you get a bid like Xavier did as an 11 seed last year, and you win a game or whatever, all of that is like the goodwill that kind of keeps the things going. Georgetown's going to want to be a lot higher than that. I think Georgetown has the capacity to be a second weekend team. I don't think they're going to go much further than maybe a Sweet 16. I think that's their ceiling, but I think they can definitely be a tournament team this year. St. John's definitely is probably a first or second weekend team. UConn's a national title contender. Creighton's taken a step back a little bit. People forget Ryan Kalkbrenner was there for 5 years, won 4 defensive players of the year. They got crushed by Gonzaga last night. And it's partly because they couldn't rebound. They're missing a guy who, by the way, was 7-1 and is starting in the league right now. So all of this stuff is very it's fluid, Then you have this whole G League thing where players are allowed to come into college after playing professionally in the States. Which I'm asking you this question because people are making a big deal about this. Where this kid, or there's been a couple kids that have been allowed to come back to college, but they never enrolled as collegiate athletes. They played in the G League. There's not much difference. I want to get this out there. There's not much difference than if you bring a 22-year-old kid from Spain to come play at UConn or St. John's or someplace else, right? When I was a kid, the 89-90 dream season, my favorite year of all time, Nadav Hennefeld was my favorite player. He was a professional player in Israel. I don't hear any UConn fans being pissed off that we got him. And there was NCAA questions around, did he get paid too much, or was there the eligibility aspect? Like, so if you go play for the overtime elite or some G League team and you never touch such foot in the NBA, it's the same as playing in a pro league in Europe. And if you don't like either, fine. You can die on that hill. But the reality is that's the rules right now. And that's why these kids have been like, well, shit, I mean, I can go play at Kansas or Louisville and make more money in college than I can in the G League. And why not? And up my profile. There's no difference. So people need to chill about that. Like, just relax. It's this is college athletics right now.
It is.
It's and all the yelling and screaming and the get off my lawn old man stuff is just not gonna. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. So it's just the truth.
All right. So BYU prediction. What do you got?
We talked about this on the live show. My guy Russ came on. He had Calhoun on his Spaces talking about his new book, and he had a conversation around: is it going to be a higher spread, lower spread? I think it's not out yet, but I think UConn's going to be favored by about between 6 and 8 points. It's probably around the seven-ish, which I think is a fair line because it's a neutral site, but it's basically home.
Boston, right?
Yep, yeah. It's in Boston. BYU travels, so they'll definitely have some people there. I think they win. I think it'll be under 10 points. I think it could get to the point where they could go on a run and beat this team by double digits, but just have to remember this BYU team, why people want to, you're a UConn fan, and if you want to shit on them and say like, oh, this team is not that good, they're good. They're a top 10 team in the country. Last year, Richie Saunders could drop 30 on you for a joke. Now he's their third option.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got AJ DeBonsa, who is either the number 1 or 2 pick in the draft. Rob Wright, who played at Baylor last year, is their point guard. He had 27 points last night. So they got 3 guys, like we have our big 3 with Solo, Alex, and Terrace, that can get you 75 to 80 points. Will they do that against UConn? I don't know. But it's just something to watch. If one of those guys goes off and the other 2 have a bad day, UConn's in great shape. If 2, we're more on shaky ground. If all 3, there's a potential where they can lose that game. So the key to this game, though, is Terrace Reed versus Kita, Kita or something like that. He's a 6'8". He's from the same parts of the world that Adama Sanogo is from. He almost looks like he could be his twin, 6'8", 240, really physical player, like an athletic freak. But Terrace is bigger than him, and if he can get him off the glass, keep away the extra possessions from BYU, I think UConn wins by 7 or 8 points. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game, and it's going to be 2 high-level offenses trying to see if their defenses can keep up.
And last thoughts, what have you thought of the football team this year?
Oh, I love it. We've been doing a pod called Rents Do with my buddy Joey Bellbonds, who goes to all the games. And we did a little crossover episode that went on Big East Energy Network. We were joking around like, oh, this is Big East football now. I love my one criticism, and people in football fans give me shit about this all the time, about how like you have to have perspective. This team had 1 win a couple years ago.
No, I know what you're going to say,
but
I agree with you.
I live in the here and now, and I made a point that I've correlated Solo and Jim Mora together. I'm being honest with this.
Yep.
Solo Ball has been a straight line shooter and a 3-point shooter for his first 2 years in college. The first few games of the year, he's shown a little bit of difference. So the tendencies are harder to be around, right? He'll step in and hit a mid-range jump shot. He'll get to the basket. And then all of a sudden he's starting getting fouled on threes. And, he's averaging 20 points a game, whatever it is. Jim Mora's fake punt. You want to know why that worked, Steve? Because no one.
I was shocked by that.
I know, because no one fucking thought he would do it.
No one did. No one did. No one had a clue.
So his tendencies have always been conservative. So he, lays his balls on the line and he goes for it, which I give him all the credit in the world. But it's because he's been such a pansy in the past.
Yes.
Not going for it on 4th downs that Manny Diaz was like, there's no freaking way he's going for this shit. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. I thought the exact same thing when I saw it. I almost fell out of my chair.
Yeah.
I was like,
and it
wow.
was the turning point of the game. And I said, here, we're at this point with this football team where they could be 10-0. They literally could be 10-0.
I know.
They could be.
The 3 overtime games. I know.
All overtime. We joke around like if they had a hockey schedule record to be 7-0-3, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's the thing that frustrates me about the football team is like you don't get opportunities like this too much. Like I don't think Jim Moore is getting like a contract from like what happened with Randy Edsel. I don't think anyone's coming knocking. They give him praise, but he's in his 60s. I don't think he's getting a big
$8 million. Yeah, right.
So like to me, it's like he's also like, let me ask you this, because he also was like really contentious at the last press conference, like before this game, before the Duke game.
He was very short. Yeah.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden he's like Belichick, like, dude, like, you know what I mean? Like you're either
I heard him. Yeah.
I don't get like the code switch on that. Like he's usually like Mr. Upbeat, like,
he's always positive, always in a great mood, smile on his face.
And these beat reporters. I've met them all in person. Joe, Dave, Dom. They're all like really nice, like sweet dudes. Like no one's grilling you.
Yeah.
So like that's my I have my people think I'm a Mora hater, and that's fine. You can call me that all you want. He was a mediocre coach in the pros.
Everywhere he's been.
And he's built an amazing product here. But there's still those little things that creep up from time to time, and it's the reason why they aren't being talked about. Like, oh, I mean, shouldn't UConn be in the college football? If they were 10-0, would we be talking about college football playoff?
Not with that schedule, no.
But people would still talk about it.
Yeah,
they were still talked about it on College Game Day. Nick Saban gave them a love.
He brought them up, yes. He gave them.
If they're 10-0, bro, they literally are talked about every weekend until the playoff starts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it would have been great, and we're a few plays away from it. So it's been wonderful to have that this year. I'm excited to get up Saturday and watch them play Air Force, and then get to watch BYU at night. So it's going to be
before we go. They're playing Air Force. We talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? This has been a tendency. Big win. Are they coming back down to earth? Are they following through on the momentum?
Mark, we have failed to stop the run all year long, and that scares me to death. That scared me when we played Rice, because I knew Rice had a good running game and a running quarterback. Mm-hmm. We have not done well with dual threat quarterbacks and teams that can run the ball. Are we going to have a letdown against Air Force? Quite possibly. Joe thinks that we can outscore them, but it's going to be important to take the lead early and hopefully make them one-dimensional or limit their run game. If we're in a close game or a barn burner with them, it's going to be much more difficult, because then they can run the ball. They're going to run the ball effectively. So that's my only concern. And yeah, we did have the letdown after the BC win. We have an opportunity to win 9 games again this year, or 10, which would be a record.
Yep.
We've never won 9 games in 2 years in a row, 10 games. I mean, so those are things that we still have to play for. But yeah, I agree with you. There absolutely could be a letdown. We have to stop the run. And if they can do that and we get a lead early and Joe Caggiano keeps doing what he's doing, Skylar Bell keeps doing what he's doing, I think we'll be okay. And we better be, because I'm going. So if I go and we lose, it's going to be a long car ride home. That's all I have to say.
Your fault. It's your fault if they lose.
Yeah, it will be my fault. It will be my fault. I cursed him. But thank you for stepping in. Big East Energy. Check out their YouTube channel and subscribe. They have phenomenal content and a lot of different variety of shows. Go on there, subscribe, and please support Mark, because we need all the support we can get for the Big East, all the support we can get for our content creators. And for Mark, thank you again for stepping in. And
hey, Steve, before we go, can I mention something real quick?
Please do.
So we're doing something really cool, and actually, I think Dom Amore might have something either in his column this weekend or next weekend. We have a partnership with the Connecticut Boys and Girls Club. It's the Alliance of Connecticut Boys and Girls Club. So if we get sponsorships, in particular to my podcast, the Hoop Scout Pod, on the men's and women's side, we're taking a very large portion of those sponsorships and putting it towards the Connecticut Alliance of Boys and Girls Club. So it's really depending on if a business says, "Hey, I only have $1,000," we'll put 25% of that. If it's a higher dollar value, we're going to do 50%. So if it's like, let's say I want to sponsor the Big East season for the men or the women, we're separating it into 2 shows. There's 4 shows a week, 2 men's, 2 women's, and we're trying to create. We have one sponsor. Jim Sulik is a lawyer in South Windsor. He's done some stuff for a few months with the men. So like anybody else that wants to do that, if you're interested, if you're a business listening to this, or you know of a business that would be interested in getting their brand out there, we're doing that. Absolutely. And then we have any Connecticut items on BigEastEnergy.com. All the proceeds go to the Connecticut Boys and Girls Club. So we have some really cool phenomenal Sarah Strong shirts that are not taking it for her likeness. We got permission from the dad of Braylon Mullins to do a Mullins Mania shirt that we have being sold right now on BigEastEnergy.com. And Terrace Reed, basically it's just a big bear screaming. That's like
all we need for him.
So so if you get a chance to check out BigEastEnergy.com, there's some cool stuff on there that go to Connecticut Boys and Girls Club.
And does it run all year, all season long?
All year. Yep, all year.
Beautiful. Okay.
There's no cap on it. So if like I said, if we get a bunch of sponsorship opportunities for folks, we'll tier them. And so if you're interested, reach out to me. That's my handle on X, or you can find me on anywhere. BigEastEnergy at gmail.com. Email me, figure it out. We can get something done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely some businesses out there we can reach out to. And I'm so happy that you're working with the Boys and Girls Club. That is critical, and that has helped so many. And donating and doing that is awesome. So I will absolutely do what I can to help out with that. So again, thank you for jumping in on short notice. Poor Mark, I messaged him at 9 a.m. asking if he can go at 10. So he did us a favor. Again, Big East Energy, check out their YouTube channel, subscribe. And they produce tremendous content covering the Big East, and we want to continue to feature the Big East and promote it as much as possible. This has been Husky Hoops. I am Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the universe. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw them right back at